Hey guys, Mike Toy, Bonsai Boise. So I've been MIA for a little while because I was moving. So I'm in my new house now. Here's my grow tent. I'll give you a 360 look at my new, I'm gonna call it my bonsai room, my bonsai studio. It's upstairs. I've got room for the grow tent, camera, little table to work on bonsais. So it's nice, it's a nice upgrade. I'm gonna give you a tour of the inside of the grow tent and do some updates on a few trees that I worked on over the past year or two and just kind of give you a little look at how they're doing and how they're progressing. And I'll mention a couple of my fallen comrades that didn't survive the move. It was very cold and these are tropicals, so had a few casualties. I'll give you a look here and give you a little tour of just a quick 360 of the bonsai room. And if you're wondering why I'm kneeling down on the ground, there is a light fixture right above my head that I've already cracked my head on at least a dozen times doing this. I'm having it removed next week. So let me give you a look at that in the bonsai room. So there's the infamous light. There used to be a pool table in this room, and so it made sense at the time. Now, it's basically just a head injury waiting to happen. Other than that, let me give you a little look around here. So there's the stairs that go downstairs. Bedrooms and whatnot. Window, little bonsai workstation. And this is all a work in progress. It's gonna be a little better than this. Little TV to watch while I'm working. A little Lord of the Rings action there. Yeah. So that's just a quick 360 tour. So I'll give you a tour of the outside this weekend. It's supposed to be nice, somewhere close to 50 degrees and sunny. So that's nice, looking forward to that. So I'll give you a look at the outdoor trees and the yard setup so you can see kind of where the optimization is for putting the trees where the sunshine is. But for now, I'll stop rambling. Let's open up the grow tent and take a look. Door number one. And door number two. All right. So I switched it up a little bit. If you've seen any of the previous videos that I did on this at the apartment, you would maybe notice that this rack was on the other side, so couldn't even tell you why I switched it up, I just did. In fact, let me take this camera off the tripod here so we can get a better look. So here we are. A couple of Tigerbark ficuses. I call these two Benny and June. I'll pull them out, we'll look. The two little leaf ficus here. Work bonsai, the ficus fusion. Whole bunch of ficus fusions down there. Here is one that I did recently. This was a bush to bonsai 2.0. I find it's really hard to get a good look at it when I put the camera in here simply because there's no solid color background, so it kind of gets lost. But we'll just take a quick peek and then I'll pull some of the trees out. So I have two podocarpuses, one of which I think that one's dead. If not dead, close to it, because you can see the one on the left there. Look how bright green and healthy it is. And then that. So it's not doing so hot. So we moved out of the apartment and into this house at the end of January. At first it was really nice and sunny and kind of spring-like leading up to the move. And then the weekend of the move, total cold snap. was like 15 degrees as a high during the day. So a little bit stressful for me, just trying to figure out how to get all these trees over here, you know, without them dying. I took a couple of quick little clips and pictures, so I'll show you what that process looked like. But I eventually got them all here. There's a new one. Haven't introduced you to this one yet. That's a eucalyptus tree. I'll pull it out so we can get a better look. So, believe it or not, more of the tropical trees survived than the outdoor trees. I lost a lot of outdoor trees in 2022. I think, or I suspect at least, because they just didn't get full sun. They were on my north-facing balcony and they just didn't make it. So that's a bummer. We'll look at those this weekend. For now, let's go ahead and pull some of these guys out and get a better look. We'll start with the 2 Tigerbark ficus. Let's take a look. All right. So first on deck are the 2 Tigerbark ficuses, Benny and June. These 2 are both on deck to be repotted this summer, if not sooner. I potted them in these pots, I believe it was in 2019, could have been 2020. I think it was 2019. So they've been in there quite a while. Take it back, this one actually, I remember now, about 1.5 years ago, it fell off the balcony. I came home on a really hot summer day, and this was out of the pot. It had fallen 3 flights down, just laying on the ground on like one of the hottest days of the year. I thought for sure it was gonna die. I had been gone for like 6 hours, so who knows when it happened. But anyways, I repotted it up and it didn't skip a beat. So it's tougher than it looks, I guess. I've done some wiring here. As I'm looking at it now, I can't really even tell what I was going for. I think I was sort of doing it piecemeal. Like, I want this branch down, so I'd like wire it down. Then I'd look and I'd go, oh, now I want that one moved. And so it's kind of a disorganized mess. I can also see now, let's see if I can give you a look here. The wires are eating into the branch. It'll cooperate. Kind of hard to tell, but just a little bit biting into that branch right there. I'm definitely going to want to take the wires off at the time and redo it. Either redo it or maybe it just stayed in place, who knows. One thing I'll point out on these, typically you would want to repot Tigerbark ficus, or really any ficus or tropical, in like mid-summer, maybe even like late summer, early fall, not springtime. It's kind of a misconception, I think, that you want to do these in spring. You want to do your deciduous trees in spring for sure. That's when they're coming back to life, sap is starting to flow. But these are not deciduous. They don't drop their leaves and go dormant. So what I'm getting at is over the winter, since they're not getting full sun, they get a little weaker. Just a little. I mean, they don't die, but they're not growing. They're just sort of like maintaining a little bit. So springtime is actually the worst time to do it because they're just coming out of that weak period of the winter time. So you want to do it in summertime when they're, going full growth, or even early fall where they've got all that growth momentum. That's just my own experience talking. It's, I don't know what the books will tell you, but that's what I have learned the hard way. So, yeah, so I'm going to be repotting these and just doing a little trim. I guess one thing I'll also say before I close on these is the reason that I am going to be doing them sooner is because I've got the grow tent and they've never really stopped growing. So I've got so much light and humidity in there that it's not quite the same as the sun, but sort of tricks them a little bit into thinking that it's still grow season. So I think I can get away with it. but I'm doing it at my own risk. So just be warned about that. All right, so that's enough of these. Let's take a look at some others. All right, so here's the one that I refer to as Old Smokey. Just did a video, the first video of this a couple months ago maybe. It was a gigantic bush. The title of the video is Bush to Bonsai 2.0, because it's the second one of these that I've done. I mean, it was just ginormous. It was massive. Trimmed it down to this, got it in this pot, and it's been doing great. What I was hoping for is mostly happening. I was hoping that it would back bud like kind of down low. It's not happening in all the areas that I hoped for. Let me bring you in for a close-up here and show you what I mean. Oops, there we go. So what I was hoping for, we've got these really, back up low, got these really long, straight trunks, like 3 or 4 of them. They're just long and straight. I wanted some back budding on there. One of them did exactly as I had hoped. So this one here back budded quite a bit. All these other little ones back budded quite a bit, as you can see down there. But not the long straight ones too much, not as much as I had hoped for. It did some, because they were, you know, much longer and straighter. So it back budded a little, like here, so I could stand to chop it down more. Every time you chop it down more, it tends to spawn some back budding lower. So you just kind of do that as a process over and over until eventually you get it at the height you want. But so just got these long straight branches on the rest of them. So I've got a few options. In fact, with this one, I've always had a lot of options, so I'm not really complaining. But one of the options I'm sort of thinking about is just letting it continue to fuse together, just naturally, not binding it together or anything. Just sort of let it fuse together naturally. It's already starting to do that. Let's see if I can get you a close up here of that. You can see where this is fused together. Back in here. That's fused together. At one point that fused together with something. So who knows, I might end up binding them together to make it fuse faster. Or not. I mean, it kind of looks cool the way it is, kind of column style almost, I would call it. It's like a bunch of columns. So that's one possible strategy, plan of attack for this. Another is to let the bottom just kind of continue doing its thing and binding up these top ones together. And so what would end up happening is almost like cheating at aerial roots. Think of it like that. So you would have this one big main trunk that then goes down, a big main trunk that goes down and spreads out into multiple trunks, kind of like aerial roots is what it would look like, or exposed roots. So it's a technique of getting exposed roots, you know, by other means, I guess you could say. But for now, I'm not really getting too hung up on what to do with it. I'm just simply letting it grow, letting it recover, which it seems to be doing just fine. If you didn't get a chance to see the video of making this, the reason I call this Old Smokey is because I bought it for 50 bucks off of Facebook Marketplace, and the people I bought it from, very nice people, they were smokers. So being this big gigantic bush as it was, it took up like my entire cab of my truck, and you know, it smelled like smoke. And it smelled like, I got home, put it in my office, and then my office smelled like smoke. So I think I got rid of all the smoke smell, but that's where it got its name. So that's Old Smokey. Let's look at another one. All right, well, since we're on the subject of Old Smokey, let me show you what I did with a lot of the cuttings that I took from it. So I must have, here are 2 of them. I must have, gosh, at least half a dozen more, if not more than that, I don't know. So all I did is I took some of the cuttings. I didn't even really wait to let them root. I just bound them together, put them in some bonsai soil, and away they went. Poke holes in the bottom, of course. Yeah, so the styrofoam cups, I realize some people might think that's a little bit ghetto looking, and it is. It's not its final form, of course. But I find that styrofoam cups are great for cuttings for a lot of reasons. One, you get like 10 of them for $1. And 2, it's easy to poke holes in the bottom for drainage. They're somewhat disposable, so you can kind of play around with them without worrying too much. And they've got a lot of insulating properties. It keeps your drink cold if it's a cold drink, keeps it hot if it's a hot drink. So I find that the roots do really well in them, and as you can see, they are doing well in them. So anyway, that's just a little look here at what I'm doing. The rest of them are pretty similar to this. I think one of them I did this and then I just sort of started sticking a bunch of cuttings in it all over, so it might look a little different, but yeah. So we'll see how that goes. I've still got a bunch of smaller ficus fusion, from cuttings from the previous year, the first bush to bonsai, and they're in there too. Let me give you a look at those. All right, so here are some of the cuttings from the previous year's bush to bonsai. They're not as impressive. They were super cool at the time until I did this last one and the cuttings were much bigger and thicker and cooler. But that's okay. They got potential. I'm in no hurry. Although I have so many ficus fusion things going now that I really just need to thin out the herd a little bit. Here's something I've been doing too. So sometimes I just don't have the heart to throw away, decent cuttings. So now I find myself just kind of finding a pot and just sticking them in. And I mean just like wherever, however, just shoving them in there. And then every so often I'll go through and I'll clean out the ones that didn't make it, make room for other ones. Is it pretty? No, it's more like an experiment. I'm just kind of seeing what happens. After a couple of years of doing this, it might end up being something cool. It might just kind of create its own little form and, style, and I'll do something with it. Or it might just be ugly and I'll give it away. I just like growing things. So I experiment and try stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, so that's a look at some of the older ficus fusion from cuttings. Let's look at some different trees. Okay, I won't go too in depth on this one, but just to give you a quick intro, since I've not shown this before, this is a Schefflera clump that I got at some big box store, I want to say early last summer. I chopped it way back, stuck it in the greenhouse to grow. The other day I pulled it out, chopped it way back again, put it back in the greenhouse. I tend to love doing these little Schefflera clumps because it's kind of the equivalent of that last ficus fusion where I just stuck a bunch of cuttings in a pot. I'm pretty sure that's how these things originate. I think that wherever they come from, that's what they do. They just stick a bunch of cuttings in a pot and just let them grow for years. As you can see, the roots down here are kind of wrapping around and around. That's probably pot bound by now. I've actually been meaning for a while to pull it out and put it in a pot. I have a pot picked out and everything, and I just haven't done it. It's a big job doing these Schefflera clumps. I mean, take a look at this pot. I mean, it's a lot of dirt. It's a lot of sawing and, combing out of roots. And it's a big job. So it was hard in that little apartment to do bigger jobs like this. It just made such a mess. Now that I have a yard, not as big of a concern. Anyways, I did take some footage of the original chopping down when I first got it. And I will do a video on turning this into a Schefflera clump style bonsai when I do it, which will be this summer sometime. So that's just a quick sneak peek at this one. Stay tuned for more on that this summer. For now, let me give you a look at a couple others. All right, just another quick look at a few of these. These are Crepe Myrtles. They're not impressive looking right now, and that's not the point. The point is how I got them and how you can do them too, how you can get them. So you go to the Arbor Day Foundation's website, sign up for a membership. It's like $10 a year, I think. Maybe it's $10 every 6 months. I can't remember now. It might be $10 every 6 months. Anyways, when you do that, you get 10 free trees. They have a whole catalog you can choose from. Flowering trees, shade trees, fruit trees, you name it. This year, I went with Crepe Myrtles. The only downside is you don't get them right away. They don't send them out until sometime in November. So by the time you get them, you've long forgotten that you did it. And when you do get them, they're bare rooted. They just come in a little package and it's just like a stick with some roots. That's it, and some water. But I stuck these in soil and my new little method here of styrofoam cups. And put them in the greenhouse, and sure enough, popped right open. I have more of them in there buried somewhere. I just can't get to them. This one here was one that had almost died during the move. But as you can see, even though it lost all its leaves, bouncing back. It had like almost no leaves left. I think these two, that was all that was left, these two raggy looking leaves. I thought, I don't know, I've got hope. I put it in and sure enough it bounced back. So, Crepe Myrtles, Arbor Day Foundation. If you haven't done it, spend the $10 and do it. It's a good deal. Next up is my 2 little leaf ficus. Doing well. This one has a long way to go before it's going to be very impressive. I mean, it's already cool. I see the potential in it. I guess it just depends on how you look at it, because if you look at it in terms of potential, it's got a lot of it. Got great root base here, which is kind of a mess actually, but potential. Big ugly scar right up front, so that sucks. Lots of branches coming out of basically the same location. I haven't had the heart to really get drastic with it yet, which is what I basically need to do, I think. That was how this scar came to be in the first place. It was a big bulge because all that growth in one spot caused it. So I'm just going to keep chipping away at it and keep working on it and keep progressing, keep improving. And sooner or later, it'll be a nice, respectable little tree. It did take a lot of cuttings from it, which here I'm going to cheat here and just show you real quick. This, lots of good, healthy cuttings. And lots more healthy cuttings back here. So, cuttings root very easily from ficus. Let's look at more. All right, let's take a look at these Willow leaf ficus. The first thing I'll point out is that these come from 2 different stock, I would say. So these 2 I got at a nursery last year. This one I got at a nursery a few years ago. And this one is a cutting from this one. And the only reason I'm pointing that out is because of the very different growth habits of the 2 stock. For whatever reason, this one has always struggled. It doesn't take well to pruning. I had it in some kind of bad soil for the longest time. I repotted it last summer, did a video on it, and it loved the new soil and bounced back real healthy like. But I haven't touched it since. This was a cutting that survived from this a couple years ago when I did a pruning. And I've never touched it or pruned it at all until just a couple of weeks ago. It was kind of getting overgrown. I thought, you know, sooner or later I gotta prune it. And I was bored, so thought now's as good a time as any. So I did. So it's got some potential. These two, on the other hand, seem to have no problems at all with anything. A little clump style that I'm doing with it. I don't think I've ever done a video on these, so this will probably be the first time you've seen them. Got some aerial roots growing here. This is about ready for repotting. It's pretty tight. Got some roots coming out of the bottom, as you can see. We'll repot that this summer. Probably just put it in the same pot and just keep going the way it's been going. But yeah, it's responded well to pruning. So very different growth habit. Same story on this one. Responds well to pruning. Pot's kind of nasty looking, but the tree itself is kind of cool. I just wired it up the other day. First time I've messed with it a whole lot, and it's been responding well. So I've got some other willow leaf cuttings in there, but these are the 4 notable ones. Willow leaf ficus are really pretty little trees, I think. Even if they don't always want to cooperate. They eventually play along. All right, let's look at 1 or 2 more, and then we'll wrap it up for the day. Okay, last but not least today, some of my Siberian elms. I've been wondering the past few years whether Siberian elms are like the Chinese elms, as in whether or not they can live indoors or in a greenhouse. And this year I decided to take a couple of cuttings, just smaller ones, and put them in the greenhouse, see what happened. I even let them go dormant first in the fall. Let them drop all their leaves and go dormant. Then I pulled them in, put them in the greenhouse, and sure enough, they bounced right back to life. Although I'm still not sold on how well this is going to work because I'm getting mixed results. So if you look at this one, for example, you'll see a big difference in leaves. From the original set of leaves, and I've already trimmed them all once too. Some of the new leaves, they're very dainty. Here's a better example. So look at the leaves on this one. In fact, look at the new growth in general. Look at the new branches. You can see that the branches are just very green and soft, which in general I've noticed living in the greenhouse, a lot of these trees kind of do something like that where they pop out growth real easy, but it's not strong growth like you would get if they were living outside. So while it may look like this test is successful, and currently it is, we don't know if it's going to be long-term successful. We'll know come spring and summer. Once these things see the light of the sun and some wind and some other conditions, they may just shrivel up. Who knows? But I hope not, because I like elms. I like Siberian elms a lot. They ramify really easily. This is a cutting that's maybe 2 years old, if that. I mean, look at all that. Look at that branching. They root really easily from cuttings. They grow fast. They're just a lot of fun. You can do a lot with them. You can wire the branches really easily. Put them into cool, weird shapes. So I hope that it makes it. I wanted to show you the eucalyptus tree. I'm gonna have to just stick the camera in there to show you how it's looking now. I took some footage of it as I was potting it up, but I can't really get back there easy enough to pull it out, so I apologize. I'll pull it out first chance I get. But for now, let me just stick the camera in there as far as I can. Yeah, this isn't really doing it justice at all. Let me pause for a second. Let me just show you how this thing started. Okay, so you can see kind of how it started and where it's going. But as you can see now, got new growth popping out. That's a good sign. I got hopes for this eucalyptus. I think it's gonna be a fun tree. Sorry, my face is all red from sticking my head in that greenhouse so many times. Anyways, that's it for this update. Thanks for being patient with me as I was moving. I didn't put out much content. Got a lot more content coming your way this spring and summer, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching the update today. Have a good rest of your night.